Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First, let me wish all of you a belated Happy New Year. This morning, we will be giving our response to the recommendations made by the Advisory Council on the impact of new media on society, otherwise known as AIM. In April 2007, the government set up the Advisory Council on the impact of new media on society under the chairmanship of Mr. Cheong Ip Seng, former editor-in-chief of the English and Malay newspaper division of Singapore Press Holding. The council was tasked to study the implication of rapidly evolving new media technology on our society and to recommend appropriate ways to address the impact. AIMS has tapped the experience of other countries through study trips to the United States, Europe, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, China, Japan, and South Korea. It has also sought the views and inputs from a cross-section of Singaporean society through a 6-week public consultation exercise. AIMS has made recommendations in 4 key areas, namely e-engagement, online content or online political content, protection of minors, and intermediary immunity for online defamation. New media has evolved at a rapid pace and is a complex subject. Hence, it is not surprising that there were different and opposing views expressed, not just among AIMS members themselves, but also across the various groups that AIMS consulted with. Even where there was a consensus on a particular recommendation to deal with a particular impact, there were different views on how the recommendation or the measure should be implemented. MICA has studied the AIMS report, and we would like to announce government's response to the recommendations made by the Council. The government generally agrees with and accepts most of AIMS' recommendation, although in some cases we have adopted a different approach towards the specific measures and the pace of implementation. On protection of minors, we share AIMS' concern over the impact of harmful and undesirable online content on our young people. We agree that there is a need for a holistic and coordinated approach to deal with this problem. The government will work closely with the people and private sectors and leverage on existing efforts to protect minors undertaken by the Internet and Media Advisory Committee, otherwise known as INMAC, and also community organizations that are active in this area. Within government, there is also a scope for enhanced coordination across various agencies and the provision of more resources to fund new initiatives and programs for cyber wellness. AIMS recommended the establishment of a coordinating agency for cyber wellness. We agree with this principle, but instead of an agency, we will set up an inter-ministry task force on cyber wellness to coordinate national effort and to develop strategies and programs for protecting the young. The task force will work with industry and community partners. It will be chaired by deputy secretaries from MICA and the Ministry of Education. The task force will be provided with appropriate resources for carrying out its mission. AIM has recommended the symbolic ban on 100 websites promoting undesirable content to remain for now. Government agrees with this recommendation. in line with AIM's recommendation, the government will review and consider lifting the symbolic ban on 100 websites when programs for the protection of the young and a culture of cyber wellness have been firmly established. The blocking of harmful websites to protect children is not uncommon. Other countries, such as the United Kingdom and Australia, have also developed lists of blocked websites for the protection of the young. We will continue to study how other countries are addressing these pernicious problems. AIMS also recommended to liberalize the Films Act. The government accepts AIM's recommendation to take a phased approach in liberalizing the Films Act. The government will amend the Films Act to allow for certain type of party political films or PPFs. Films which are factual and objective and do not dramatize and or present a distorted picture will be allowed. Party political films that will be allowed under the amended Films Act will include factual documentaries and footages, recordings of actual events, and biographies or autobiographies. The government will also allow political parties and their candidates to use films allowed under the amended Films Act for internet election advertising during election period. Such films could include films on their election candidates, campaign activities, and election manifestos. In liberalizing the Films Act, the government also accepts AIM's recommendations to set up an independent advisory panel. The advisory panel will determine whether films are party political films and if they should be allowed under the amended Films Act. This advisory panel will be chaired by Mr. Richard Magnus, retired senior district judge and currently also chairman of the Casino Regulatory Authority. The government accepts AIM's recommendation to retain Section 35 of the Films Act in order to deal with harmful videos such as the fitna video. Such videos or films are clearly against public interest. The government accepts AIM's recommendation to extend the positive list for internet election advertising. It will allow election candidates and their political parties and agents to use podcasts, vodcasts, blogs, and other new media tools for internet election advertising during election. Examples include producing podcasts or vodcasts to promote election candidate or the election manifestos, as well as election rally speeches, or the party's press conferences and constituency tours by their candidates. However, films that are not allowed under the amended Films Act will continue to be disallowed. The government will also allow individuals to participate in internet election advertising. Individuals will be able to participate by blogging or posting election materials. However, there should be some safeguards to try to maintain accountability and responsibility. This is an area which will require further study. AIM has recommended the removal of the registration requirement. After careful study, the government has decided to retain the registration requirement for websites of political parties, as well as for individuals or bodies or persons who provide any program for the propagation, promotion, or discussion of political or religious issues on the internet. This is to maintain a higher level of responsibility and accountability for those people who are behind such websites. We note that during the public consultation, a small number of people had indeed supported the registration requirement to ensure responsibility and credibility. I would like to point out that registration does not in any way discourage diverse and robust views which are prevalent online today. Political parties which have registered their website continue to discuss national policies and issues freely and critically on their websites. The government accepts AIM's recommendation to retain the class license scheme, as AIM has acknowledged the benefit of the scheme as a light-touch regulatory policy. On e-engagement, the government agrees with AIM that there should be more e-engagement between itself and the citizens. We note that AIM advocated an evolutionary rather than a revolutionary approach. Government agencies will embark on e-engagements with citizens on policies and national issues through public consultation and forum discussion on the REACH portal. We have invited Chairman of REACH to join us today at this press conference. We have decided to e-engage through REACH, as this platform has an established online presence and has been pioneering the use of multiple new media technologies to reach out to Singaporeans for online feedback, for consultation, and for engagement. Government agencies will also find it beneficial to write on the experience of REACH as they learn to e-engage. With experience and growing capabilities, we will explore other avenues for e-engagement. Government agencies will also reply to online letters carried in the online letter forums of local mainstream media. Of course, I need to caution at this juncture that not all letters posted on online forums of mainstream media will get a response. The need for a reply will have to be assessed by the agencies concerned. On giving more space for civil servants to voice opinion, AIM has recommended that the instruction manual be amended to allow civil servants to voice their personal opinion on government policy. The government has decided that it will not do so, as allowing civil servants to publicly express their private views on government policy would compromise the performance of their duty by undermining discipline and trust within the civil service. The current civil service rules regarding communicating their personal views in public are not different from what many big organizations such as MNCs and other governments would require of their staff. Last and not least, the recommendation on intermediary immunity for online defamation. The government agrees with AIM on the need for greater legal certainty regarding the liability of online intermediary for defamatory content published online. The issue of online defamation is a complex one. AIM has proposed a take-down, put-back approach. This approach has not been tried or enacted as law in other countries. We will need to study the implication and the practicability of this approach and other measures to address the concerns of internet intermediary and content hosts before introducing an appropriate legislative measures. So in conclusion, the recommendations which have been accepted for implementation will go a long way towards widening the space for political debate and participation, strengthening government-people engagement, and ensuring that Singaporeans will be able to tap the full potential of new media to better our society and at the same time minimize the adverse impact. I would like to congratulate Mr. Cheong Yip Seng, Chairman of AIM, and his council members for their excellent report and comprehensive review of the impact of new media. They have put in an enormous amount of time and energy in the study and report. They have made a major contribution to prepare Singapore for the era of the new media. I thank Mr. Cheong and his members for the good work they have done. Thank you. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to address them.